Greetings. Another video, another time of considering what we need to do and what we need to have in order to have the discussions, the conversations, and the considerations that we need. We are going to take back our country. We're going to take back our society. We're going to reestablish the Constitution as the fundamental basis in American society. Those of you in the UK, you'll have the same problems because unfortunately you seem to have imported so many of these things from us. But more than importing them from us, we have to recognize that there is a sustained attack and assault on the values of Western civilization. The sustained attack and assault is Marxist in nature, in basis. Who's still Marxist? Couldn't tell you. Well, I could, but that would be a spoiler alert, and I'm not ready to say the spoiler alert. So, we are building a toolbox, understanding our fundamental needs in order to do so, and building the tools, which includes like a 360 of different facets, different parts. Yesterday, posted about how we are going to use the words as they are understood, and that if you are going to use words and redefine them, you actually have to redefine them. You don't get to claim the word or the association with that word. I used the example yesterday of an NFL defensive player being called a field slave. Just no. Nancy Pelosi in 2000, whatever year it was, can't remember, when there were protests and riots, maybe it was 2020, when, of course, Trump was president, and was going to send or offered to send federal agents to Portland in the face of that rioting, because it wasn't just protesting. In spite of CNN, it was rioting, breaking of into property, breaking of windows, destroying property, attacking people. Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, called the agents of the American government stormtroopers, even though she was alive when the stormtroopers were rounding people up to take them to death camps. She appropriated that in order to smear Trump. I don't care what you think about Trump. What we are not going to do is to let the Speaker of the House of Representatives smear agents of the American people by calling them stormtroopers. No. Here's another example. Different tone, different part. We are going to have discussion. We're going to have development of ideas. We're going to have consideration of ideas. You're going to be challenged in what you say and how you say it. Not style, but you're going to be challenged in your concepts. Most of us will find that for the most part we agree about most things, or we have a mutual understanding. We're also going to, and here's the key to this, we're going to be able to state facts as facts, because we can prove them. What time is it? Look at the clock. Is it raining outside? That's a fact. Yes, it is, or no, it isn't. Of course, that's a fact. It's raining here. It's not raining in Dubuque, or it's not raining wherever. Yes, of course, there might be details. What time did you get off work yesterday? How much do you make? How much did you make? How much are you paid? How much did you make last year? I wouldn't ask that question because it's none of my business, but you can state your pay. One of the things we're going to do is when we take facts and then develop concepts or positions, we're going to have to support those. An example using pay is that it is a measurable thing to be able to state this is how much on average that a group of people make. Men. This is how much women make. It is not, though, blanket that you can say there is a wage gap unless you support what it means when you say a wage gap. There might be dollars in terms of the amount earned or declared on taxes. There might be differences. There are differences. But to say there's a wage gap with the implication including to the point of characterization that that is based on sexism, you have to support that. I'm not going to sit there like this, but I'm going to sit there like this and say, go ahead, support it. Why is there a difference? There have to be reasons. If you only say it's because of sex, I'm going to look at you and say, wait a minute, it's against the law to pay some people differently based on their sex for doing the same job. So you're then going to have to show me what companies need to be sued. What companies need to be taken to court? Come on, let's get on with it. That's against the law. Sue them. Shouldn't be hard. Department of Labor. Let them know. The reason that doesn't happen blanketly to eliminate this wage gap is because the wage gap is not based on the same pay for the same job. What is it based on? I'm interested. Develop this. Well, if you look at some studies that have actually tried to address that, and they aren't driven by the politics of it or by the automatic assumption of the patriarchy, you look and you see women value, as a group, on average, value other things that is reflected in a difference in pay. Women value more regular schedules. That has value to the women more so than to the men. There's a trade-off. That trade-off is in pay. Men are more likely to work the jobs. Oh, are they controlling for the type of jobs? Because even in a profession dominated by women, such as nursing, studies have been done and show that male nurses are more likely to take the shifts that pay more likely to be travel nurses, which pay more. When you start to control for those factors, you begin to see that this wage gap is where? Oh. And if at that point you can't admit that your assumption was not valid, then you got to go back. You got to go back. We're not going to put you in jail. This isn't Monopoly, but you got to go back. Go back. Because you're not ready to admit that you had an understanding that was not supported, wasn't valid, that you believed something that wasn't true. You're going to have to admit, you're going to have to recognize She's going to have to recognize. He's going to have to recognize. I'm going to have to recognize. We have to recognize when we're shown things that we thought were true that I at least have to modify my assumptions. The example of the women's U.S. national women's soccer team last year, or I think it was last year. They made a big issue, once again, going around on the media people, these people, CNN, ESPN, saying that they were not paid fairly, that they were underpaid relative to the men. And what did they do? They made it about their performance and their results, even though their pay was not structured on performance and results. So when they had good performance and good results, they presented it that way. Well, we should have been paid more because we were the world champs. We won the World Cup. They skipped over the part that they had signed a contract that they agreed to that gave them things that they valued. They had a contract offer to them that was the same as what the men were offered. They turned it down because the women wanted more regular, guaranteed pay, more of it. That's traded off, and you don't get as much extra for the results when you get more guaranteed. The women wanted more people on the team guaranteed to pay. The women wanted benefits, especially health insurance, which they got full insurance, even though that's not a full-time job or position. They got benefits the men didn't get. They were overpaid relative to the men because of the agreement. That's how it works. That's how it works in the real world. The women, though, sued because once they had achieved World Cup victory and achieved results that would have led them to being paid more had they agreed to the first contract that they had been offered, they sued, saying they were paid underpaid because of their sex, that it was sexual discrimination. They lost. Court said, show us the evidence. There is no evidence that that happened. You were paid according to the contract you agreed to. And you were paid more in these areas, these ways. The men did not get those. So, they turned and went to the media, who does not question the storyline. MSNBC still says there's this big wage gap. Even when an expert is on that panel, listening to that, saying, no, there isn't. No, you're using data from 1973 and you're not defining what that means. So, that's a long, windy way of saying we are going to support what we say with the facts, and we're going to challenge the interpretation and the development of the positions. Those are two examples, local and larger, to remind us that it's easy to get to the narrative. It's easy to take the headline statement and treat it as fact. There are differences when you look at W-2s and you group all men together and all women together. When you start to separate them out, the differences are explainable in ways other than the explanation that we are being told. The reason we are going to do that is that fantasy world belongs on the screen. We have a problem in our society and in our country because we're being told things that we're expected to believe. Here's one. Starting to get on shaky ground here, but this is how it's going to go. Black Americans have been told for years and years and years the Democratic Party cares about them. Black Americans Look at the situation in black communities that are dominated, run by Democrats. Look at those communities. Look at them. Pull back, just critically look. And tell me that you believe the Democratic Party cares about black community. Or does the Democratic Party use the black community? Doesn't have to be either or. And for the most part, very little is either or. I would never demean or diminish the people who really are trying. And of course, there are plenty of them. But the Democratic Party has the most loyal voters that there are, which are black people and black women specifically. The Democratic Party has pushed for and passed laws, rules, regulations that have undermined the black family, black marriages, to where now up to 80% of black children are born without a father in the home. Tell me that the Democratic Party cares about black people and the black community. Tell me that. Go ahead. I want to know, because I've been watching it for decades. So we're going to do this. We're going to challenge ourselves and each other, of course, as I've been doing. Hopefully you've been challenged or had to think a little bit about, oh yeah, I didn't think about that one. That's going to be what it is most of the time. I didn't really think about that. Oh, I just assumed this. Okay. Building our toolbox requires getting our minds opened and ready to do the work. We're going to do the work. Otherwise, this country's future and the world's future, the Western world's future, I don't know what's going on in the UK. I listen to Canada, and I think, oh my gosh, and I think, listen to Australia, and I think, where are those people? What happened to those people? What happened to them? See, this isn't going to be easy. It's going to be challenging. Let's be ready to take the challenge. Son of Liberty 2020, amliberty2020@gmail.com, thelibertyhub.com. Like, share, subscribe, comment, pass this along. This is long, but it was more of a conversation in order to really make sure we are ready, because we're going to need to roll up our sleeves, lay down the defenses, put down the boxing gloves, put them down. Our country needs us because we're in a bad spot. Till next time.